Eckhard Fluss was killed in the Second Battle of Eilhart, sending the army into disarray. Gideon van Mellisk, the dutiful warrior priest, would be given a war horse as a reward for his performance in previous battles. While Gideon worked on his melee defense, Karl Franz would alter his armor to be more missile-resistant for the coming battles, and from the border of Marienburg and the Reikland, he would recruit a patrol captain of Empire Knights who would grant him a new regiment of knights to fight alongside his army. The Emperor would seize the opportunity to march north to the Sea of Claws to confront the Northmen threat head-on.
Hear me now, brave men! Brave Reiklanders, hear me! The celestial wizards read the portents true. Norse raiders land on Nordland shores. We have marched many miles, but there is no distance so great that I would not gladly march it to face this, our ultimate foe. I have refused the honor of wielding the blade of our forebears thus far. I was not worthy, but should we survive this day, should we drive the ruinous tribes back across the sea, then, with your blessing, I will pick up the Reikland runefang and use it to bleed our foes, to carve my way through Sigmar's enemies. Are you with me, men of the Empire? For when the Northmen come, they will attack hard, as their despicable gods demand. We must be ready to push them back, thrust them into the sea, in defense of the Empire! That's an order!
The Northlanders had just arrived as the Imperial army was forming, so it seemed. The right flank would be supported by Imperial cavalry with backing from the Free Company militia, while the left flank would be covered by Karl Franz himself, handgunners, and Sigmar's Chosen. The center would be guarded by devoted swordsmen. The Norskins would surge forward their cavalry, throwing axes from afar at the flanks, as soon as they spotted the Reiklanders. The handgunners fired back in an attempt to deter their relentless pressure, but it had little effect. The lines clashed in a furious melee, and Imperial Knights with their Reiksguard would dash around the right flank, accompanied by pikemen, to attack from behind, discouraging any Northman cavalry from joining the fray.
Against Sigmar's teachings!
The first army disintegrated rapidly as a result of this flanking maneuver, but horns not belonging to the Reiklanders could be heard on each flank. Hundreds of Northmen would charge out of the woods at the out-of-position Reikland army, which swiftly adjusted to form a line facing the new threat. The handgunners moved quickly and fired a barrage of bullets at the charging Northmen. Sigmar's Chosen would rush from the left flank all the way to the former right flank to engage the new adversaries and safeguard the gunnery regiments, battling with vigor never seen before. A familiar snarl and frantic growls would descend onto the battlefield as the second wave began to break. Warhounds deformed by chaos would rush forth from the trees, joined by a third wave of Northmen who patiently waited for the right moment to strike with their filthy magics.
We'll be back!
Dozens of Reiklanders would fall quickly as the shaman's voice echoed loudly above the din of the battlefield. But Karl Franz and Gideon would hunt for the Northmen's leadership, beheading the force and leaving it without guidance or magic.
Fights with us this day! This was not meant to be! Kill the Emperor! We'll be back! gods have abandoned us! I say! Enemy wizard spotted! Look out! Spellcaster! Sigma, you mad! Beware the wizard! The gods have abandoned us! I'll die on this land, wizard! The gods have abandoned us! Look out! Enemy wizard! Fight! Away the wizard!
The enemy would prove no match and escape the conflict, no doubt waiting for their next time to strike. Karl Franz would return to the border with the Reikland runefang in hand. When he returned, Averland would grant military access, taking the empire one step closer to unification.
Greetings, countrymen. I welcome your offer.
Meanwhile, Jonas von Bluten would scout the River Reich's frontier, while Gerhard Albrecht would return to Marienburg proper to recruit. When von Bluten noticed the Carroburg flying above Karl Franz's position, he marched to Gorsel to report his findings. Wissenland later declared its wish for independence. Karl Franz would soon put out this fire because it was contrary to his interests, and the timing couldn't be worse, since the Reikland couldn't afford a third costly conflict. The Emperor, on the other hand, would remember this affront. He would march to the scene of the River Reich battle and enlist 3 regiments of swordsmen from the scavengers of the battle. Elgar Solman would march on the Marienburger fortress of Carroburg and encircle the city in an attempt to buy time for the Emperor's army to reinforce. However, the garrison army of Emil von Korden, along with the city's garrison, threatened to sally forth. Solman would have no choice but to depart for the time being.
Friends of the Empire.
As the Reikland's strength grew, Middenland would want a non-aggression pact, which the Emperor would gladly accept. To boost morale, Karl Franz organizes a grand tour for the ordinary people of Reikland, parading them across the Emperor's capital while Grand Cathay brings a caravan of gifts.
Is it time? Attack! Fight for our nation!
What orders?
However, war loomed elsewhere. Karl Franz assaults and surrounds Carroburg until Solman's army arrives. The Battle of Carroburg would begin as soon as a scout reported Solman's arrival.
Emperor! Let us show our colors!
Let's get this over with.
Karl Franz would divide his forces from the east in two, with the Marienburgers to the west. Gideon von Mellisk would lead a small but specialized detachment, consisting of a strong front line backed up by handgunners and a mortar unit to guard the southern flank, while Karl Franz pressed westward.
We will win! We have to!
After inspecting the topography, the Emperor would direct von Mellisk to cover a breach a few hundred yards further west with a more aggressive slope, allowing handgunners to shoot over his front line while still protecting the Emperor's flank.
March! Atomic burn to the sky!
Karl Franz would position himself and Sigmar's Chosen on a hill with a choke point facing west. Solmann's reinforcements would be delivered along a road to the northeast. Karl Franz planned to employ Solmann's volunteers to push further north and west, forming an L-shaped front. With luck, von Mellisk would easily win his flank and be able to reinforce Karl Franz's main line with an attack from the rear of the enemy if they met him head-on.
We will win! We have to!
Traitors! Cut every last one of them down!
Marienburger mortars would fire on the Emperor as the army fought for position. To demoralize the enemies, the Emperor would make a show of quickly dodging the blasts. Because of the Imperial's quick movement, the Marienburg mortars would be in an unfavorable position in the woodlands, with most of their rounds being wasted due to hitting trees. Solmann's forces would occupy positions to the north and east of Karl Franz, and Marienburg's men would begin to close on the southern front. Von Mellisk would order his mortar crew to commence fire on the southern troops to compel the enemy into a melee as the handgunners moved into position.
A united empire is all that
Marienburg's mortars would try to hit von Mellisk's handgunners, while Solmann's detachment formed a north-south line to complete the L. The southern enemy force would charge forward, but the first line would be destroyed by handgunners before they even reached the detachment.
I foresee their deaths!
Ulrich's wolves charge with us!
The enemy encountered Karl Franz's main line atop the hill as anticipated. Fritz's wizardry and experience would bolster the main line, keeping the men in order against the superior Knights of the Blazing Sun. The Reiksguard and Empire Knights would exploit a gap in the south and rush to quiet the enemy crossbows harassing the central group.
Fight, men! Fight for our right to live! Fight, men! We will hold! Now we strike! Forward, men! Bring them to their knees! Battle!
Solman would lead his forces into combat, battling many regiments alone. He'd say combat prayers and use holy magic to destroy the enemy and prove to everyone that he was a capable and frightening warrior.
Blood of our heirs! The gods have abandoned us!
The southern flank was eventually overcome, and von Melisk escaped to aid the Reiksguard in their objective. As the cavalry advanced from melee to melee, he would target the southern crossbows, and Karl Franz himself would race to quell the still threatening mortars and Knights of the Blazing Sun far to the west.
They are using dark forces against the enemy! As long as we outnumber them, we will hold! Always deep! Retreat! Always wolves charge with us! The gods have abandoned us! Don't give him an inch!
Morale broke in waves in the Marienburg troops as the southern attack failed. The militia ambushed them as they fled. Von Corden, their captain, stayed atop the hill, trapped in a battle with the middle line. They would divide abruptly, however, as von Melisk's troop of handgunners crested the hill and taught von Corden in his final moments how he had miscalculated the Reikland. The Battle of Carroburg would result in the deaths of all 3,000 Marienburgers, and the city would be returned to its rightful elector. Fritz would also be given a war horse for his bravery in combat. Solman returns to Altdorf while Karl Franz continues south to the River Reik. Fritz is learning a new spell while Gideon is learning a new war prayer to help him in battle and heal the injured. Archlector Solman, now a seasoned leader, can motivate his people to march farther. The Red Moon Inn is being built in Ubersreich, but that's another story for another day. The outpost at Fildorf has been upgraded yet again. Archlector Solman's return to Altdorf couldn't have come at a better time, because he gets informed of the finding of a Skaven undercity as soon as he arrives. As he prepares to deal with the Skaven threat, Gerhard Albrecht of Marienburg sallies forth from Marienburg city and marches toward Eilhart, just out of the Emperor's reach. In Eilhart, the garrison commander scouted ahead, battle-tested, hardened, and familiar with the terrain. He told the men about the immense weaponry they were facing, but they marched forward to confront Albrecht's army. Unfortunately, the garrison of Eilhart was brutally murdered. There was no heroism or fanfare, only deliberate, cold death, as the Marienburgers' overwhelming cavalry and grenade launchers shot incessantly against the Reiklander infantry.
What do these bones know of Reichlanders? To the death! Back to the...
Only 220 of the almost 1,000 troops who entered battle would survive, and only then as prisoners of war. Since Karl Franz's election, the Reikland had suffered its first defeat and mourned the death of the great hero Dietz Ludenhof, who redeemed his family name. May Sigmar protect him. The Emperor's record keepers chose not to include the battle in Nordland in this tally, but Sigmar's chosen insisted on having their kills counted. The War of the One Eye, though in a lull, remains ongoing, and the numbers are the same as the previous episode. The Marienburger War has seen 3,752 enemies slain, with 1,056 captured, and 2,265 Reiklanders slain, with 220 captured. The first recorded loss for the Reikland resulted in the deaths of 740 Reiklanders and the hero of Eilhart, Dietz Ludenhof. Sigmar's chosen add 126 and 134 to their tally, bringing their total kills to 580 since adopting the name.